Alright guys, welcome back to wait, no. We aren't playing Garden Warfare 2, we aren't playing anything today actually. We're sat and we're going to talk about a book. We're talking about the PvZ comics. Specifically the first two, which is Lawmageddon and Timepocalypse. So Lawmageddon, which is the first one, is very much just based on the first game. It includes Plants and Zombies only from that first game, and I suppose was just produced as a tie-in piece of merch, almost. Because the comics that I've read, which are the first two which were released, they aren't connected to each other in any way. I mean, they have the same characters, but apart from that, they aren't overlapping or anything. So this wasn't what I expected it to be, which was, you know, kind of a lore encyclopedia almost, you know? Why things are the way they are in the games. That's what I was expecting, just kind of an explanation for everything, but they didn't do any of that. It is just kind of a serialized cartoon almost. Each comic, a different thing happens, and just action ensues, and, you know, plants and zombies and the rest of it. Like in the first one, there's just inexplicably a zombie outbreak. Why? Don't even bother asking, because this comic ain't gonna tell you. I think first of all, talking kind of generalities before I get into the comics specifically. God, this video's gonna be all over the place. I can just sense it. I think the first thing I want to talk about is the characterization of the plants. My favorite thing about these two comics. I just absolutely love every single panel with a plant in, because they all just look so innocent. They all look so innocent and they're so oblivious. Like Sunflower is just happy to be here in most of the panels that she's in. I just kind of enjoyed the fact that all of them just looked so innocent and so oblivious to what was going on. Almost to some like vicarious degree. They're just kind of relying on the main characters to exist and experience things for them, and I don't know. They're kind of cute and oblivious. Kind of like a dog. It's which is why I've written in my notes. And I guess also about the plants, which might seem a little bit contradictory, but they are very expressive in the panels that they are not oblivious. Some of the expressions they managed to get out of, especially Pea Shooter, I was very impressed with. Since Pea Shooter is literally just a pair of eyes and a mouth, which it is a mouth, we'll get to that. And the fact that, you know, you can make it look sad, you can make it look determined, happy, and the rest of it, I thought was quite well done. And I think the art in general across these two comics are quite well done. It's quintessentially Plants vs Zombies, but like changed enough to, you know, be expressive and get a lot out of it. Alright, let's go into the first comic. First and foremost, if you were expecting some sort of deep lore-heavy thing, I think by the second panel, that all those hopes completely vanish. Not trying to say that in a bad way, because like I said, I did enjoy both of these comics. I think I said that. Have I mentioned that? Okay, I like these comics. They're good. They were a fun read. But reading them just after finishing Tolkien's The Hobbit, because by the second panel, there's just a zombie outbreak. One of the digger zombies digs through, I guess, the sewers or some tunnels that were being dug, and there's just a zombie outbreak. Just inexplicably, there just is. You want to know why? Well, that's just tough. So then, shortly afterwards, we get introduced to our main characters, which is Nate Timely and Patrice Blazing, which are referenced in Plants vs Zombies 3. And the setting of this comic is Neighborville, which obviously, you know, everyone's favourite. You know, I'll talk a little bit about PvZ 3 and BFN a little bit later on in the video, but there's a few things to keep in mind regarding those two games with these comics. So after meeting up in some treehouse, they go to Crazy Dave's house, because of course they do. There's a zombie outbreak, and of course you go find the man who has crazy in his name. You know, how to fight zombies that want brains? Well, you just don't have any. Except that's not the case, because apparently Crazy Dave's some very smart genius man. He's been growing these plants everywhere, and they've just been vibing. So the two main characters are sent to go and find more of these plants, while Crazy Dave works on some sick invention. Spoiler alert, it's a Jungosaurus. But a T-Rex one this time, not a Triceratops one. So I was trying to think of what that could be a reference to, and there's just a picture of one of the panels from this comic book in Seeds Time. I think it's by Coliseum. I think it's just one of the panels. Well, if it's not exactly the panel, then it's a reference to the panel. Zomboss is in this. If you want to know why Zomboss is the only one of the zombies with a brain, and why he's so smart, well, keep wondering, because this comic doesn't tell you any of that, like I said. There's also I guess there's a little bit of an explanation for something. There's a giant fog machine, like Zomboss activates some giant purple fog machine to block out the sun. So I suppose that kind of kills all the fan theories about the fog creating the zombies, because in this comic book, which I'm assuming is canon, I don't know why it wouldn't be. I mean, they're in PvZ 3, so Yeah, the fog is just to block out the sun to stop the plants photosynthesizing. The zombies have already come into existence way before this machine's turned on. The fog in the background of the original Plants vs Zombies loading screen, that is just fog. That is it's purple because it's purple. Anyway, so these characters, after, finding these plants and Crazy Dave is doing his thing, this fog machine is turned on. That kind of kicks the second part of the plot into action. They have to go and turn on a big blowy machine to blow away the fog, and that's the end of it. They get rescued by Dave with the Junkosaurus that he made, and so all the zombies, they just go home. At least I assume. I don't know where they're going. They all go home because they lost, and then Dr. Zombos leaves the note, and all is good, all is well. If you think I kind of skimped on the story details there, I didn't. That's literally all of the story details that are in the comic. It's fun. It's a fun read. I wasn't really expecting much out of this anyway. So, I don't know why I'm feeling the need to constantly reiterate the fact that it's not really anything that deep, and it is just 50, 60 odd pages of just Garden Warfare, not even Garden Warfare, Plants vs Zombies goodness. It's just random bursts of action with events that just happen. Makes sense, my disbelief wasn't interrupted at any point, and I guess so. The second comic, I have got a bit more to say about it. Alright, so the cold hard opener is Zombos creates some sun-sucking machine, and it breaks and just casually rips a hole in space-time. That happens within maybe the first 2 pages. So that's how heavy they're going with the details here. And so, it rips a hole in space-time and sends all of these pieces through different parts of time, and it's a race between the good guys and the bad guys to go and get them all. Very classic Saturday morning cartoon shenanigans. Although, funny little detail that only I really found amusing. During the first few pages, all the zombies around it hold up like a little sign to kind of reiterate an emotion that Zombos wants to make him feel, which kind of really gave me vibes of the final scene in Shrek. I'm not quite sure why that's where my mind went, but that's all I could really think about during that entire kind of sequence of events. There's a time machine. Penny has been he just created it. Although Penny isn't a thing in this. It is just the time machine. It's not been given a soul. Dave just makes it. But anyway, we go to Egypt, and there's a zombie dog. And to my knowledge, there is not a zombie dog in PvZ 2. Maybe during development they were planning on making a zombie dog, so the comic book artists saw that and ran with it. Or maybe it's just some creative liberties they took. And the second place they travel to, I'm assuming it's a mixtape tour before that existed, because it's just a dance-off, basically. And we'll get back to this, because I want to talk about this in a later part of this comic. I mean, it's mixtape tour, but it's not, if that makes sense. Mixtape tour didn't exist in 2015, I don't think. It's the same with the Jurassic Marsh that they go to. They don't label it that. I mean, there's no character going, oh, we're here in some Jurassic Marsh. They just go back in time. The zombies don't look like they did in that, and the bully zombie isn't in this comic. So again, I'm assuming it was based off of early designs or something. All the dinosaurs are here, and I guess very early versions of the primal plants. And there's a primal chomper and a primal cactus, which, to my knowledge, is not in PvZ 2. So again, maybe this is some behind the curtain of cut content. So that happens. They get another piece of the machine part. And then they travel to, where do they travel to next? The far future. They go to the far future, like the world. And it is definitely a reference to the world, because there's a mech garg, and there's all the different plants and such that were associated with that world. Okay, so from the far future, they travel to Pirate Seas / Big Wave Beach, but I don't think Big Wave Beach was a thing at the time. But there's the essence of both. They get a machine part from there. They have to run in with some pirates and repair the thing, but then they press the other knob that says eject sun, and more sun. There's more sun, and they eject more sun. Their plants become powerful. Zombos loses, and the final few panels is just him getting punched in the gut, just absolutely walloped in the stomach. And also, it ends with a pea shooter eating a slice of pizza. So the nose versus mouth debate ends here. Even though I think in one of the earlier comics he was also drinking something. So that was the second comic. Like I said, completely irrelevant to the first one except the characters. And things just kind of happen. There's a bit more of a cohesive narrative with this, and I did find it a lot more engaging than the first one. And in things like this, where it is just kind of like things happening, a change of scenery is normally one of the best things to do. But let's talk about the comic in general. I mean, I already have just a little bit, but we'll talk about like random notes and tidbits that I had. So there's a scene when they go to the far future, there's a panel when they go to the far future with them referencing something that they did earlier in time, but they travelled back in time to go there, if that makes sense. So they travel back in time to like 1978 or something like that, do like a dance-off thing, and then they travel to the present and then to the future to get a different part. And when they travel to the future, Zomboss makes reference to something in the timeline that happened to them when they went back in time. Am I making sense? If this doesn't make sense, that's kind of my point with this. The time travel in this, like everything else, is not explained, and my head just kind of runs loops when trying to put things together. So does that mean that the things they do in the past affects the timeline? Because if that's the case, then the ending of this comic should be completely different. This comic single-handedly just would ruin that universe's timeline, with all these zombies and plants and people just going everywhere forward and back and changing the timeline. And there's also a zombie dog in far future, like there was in ancient Egypt. Again, what is this? What's going on here? Maybe it was supposed to be an enemy that got cut. And I guess onto a couple of the references. There's a reference to Chomper burrowing. Cool. And also, this one might be a bit of a stretch, but there's a Bonk Choi wearing a bandana, which I thought might be a reference to the one that would eventually end up in PvZ Heroes as a hero. Maybe it's just a coincidence, or maybe they took inspiration from the comic or whatever, but that's something I noticed. So that's the second one. A better read in my opinion than the first, so if you're going to pick up any of these, I'd recommend the second one, which is Time Apocalypse. So those are the two PvZ comics. And I do want to briefly talk about Plants vs Zombies 3 and Battle for Neighborville. Now, my stance on these two games have not changed. PvZ 3 still does not look like a very good game, and based off what everyone has been saying, it isn't a very good game, though does kind of reinforce the fact that this game was obviously made with good intentions. I don't think Battle for Neighborville or PvZ 3 were made with any sort of like cash grabby monetary incentives, purely based off of the kind of the thought that they put into the kind of setting and things in the world. The fact that they did so many references to the comics in PvZ 3 really shows, to me at least, the fact that they at least cared about what the product that they were trying to put out there. And I suppose PvZ 3 in general, it's very obvious that they care about the product because they changed the entire game. But the fact that, like I said, it makes reference to the characters in this comic and the setting in this comic, it just kind of reinforced to me that this game, it's made by people with good intentions, but it just didn't turn out very good. Those are the two PvZ comics. Have you read these comics? And if so, what do you think? Let me know in the comments section below. And with all that being said, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Goodbye.